Hello, I'm Roman McKinnon and welcome to this SpinCheck SPECIAL. The election was months ago and Parliament is now well and truly sitting. Tonight we'll take a look back at the campaign and I'll speak to one of, if not the nation's top journalists, who followed the leaders on the election trail. This is SpinCheck. It was an election like no other. 9 years out of opposition for Labor, a brutal defeat for the coalition, and now as Parliament resumes, we take a look back at the election that redefined Australia's political landscape. Join the conversation on social media by using the hashtag SIXNewsAU.
An election for the House of Representatives and half of the Senate on May 21.
Prime Minister Scott Morrison, Anthony Albanese, welcome to Six News.
Google it, mate.
Save the country. With the starting gun fired, both leaders didn't waste any time before they started their campaigns, and it was a gut punch of a start for one.
What's the national unemployment rate?
National unemployment rate at the moment is, I think it's 5.4. Sorry, I'm not sure what it is.
It fit right into the coalition's narrative that Anthony Albanese was weak on the economy, but he dusted himself off only to fall straight back down a few weeks later.
What are the 6 points?
The 6 points are what we will do in terms of was outlined by Bill Shorten.
Closely following the campaign with all its gaffes and gotchas was Seven's political editor Mark Riley, who spoke exclusively to me. I also spoke to Emerald Moon, host of the Serious Danger podcast. National reporter Austin Pollock spoke to Max Chandler Mather, who is now the Griffith MP.
It's felt almost as intense and busy in the weeks after, not just in terms of media attention, but as you can imagine, having to hire all of the staff.
And I spoke to Leo for his take on this as a young person. But let's rewind to April Fool's Day.
Only 2 out of 8 state and territory governments are now Liberal following that South Australian election. Do you feel responsible for that?
No.
Are you confident in your chances of a win on election night?
I have always believed in miracles.
Do you stand by that claim you've never lied in public office?
Well, the assertions you've just made aren't true.
You don't think Australians are interested in whether their leader tells the truth or not? Because, I mean, surely... Look, it was an amazing opportunity to interview a sitting Prime Minister is extraordinary, regardless of who they're on, what was discussed, what party they're from, whenabouts in their Prime Ministership. It's an extraordinary experience.
The Greens' success was arguably their best ever result, but was this turnback of the major parties or a reflection of the public's desire for climate action?
Look, I think a lot from column B and a bit from column A. There's certainly a turn away from the major parties, not just in southeastern Queensland, but also in other states, and particularly those seats on the North Shore and Harbourside seats in Sydney.
I think it was both. I think that the decline of the major parties definitely represents a pattern that we have seen coming for a long time, and I think that'll continue to accelerate.
The voters were not hearing from the major parties the sort of messages they wanted to hear about the issues that engaged them, and climate was a big part of that.
It was surprisingly close on Friday night's news poll, 53-47 in Labor's favour. But the path to victory for the coalition kept closing and closing and closing. It was here, D-Day for one and V-Day for the other. The race was on. The Liberal leadership race. We spoke to one of the contenders and now opposition leader, Peter Dutton. In Dixon, they liked Dutton. In Cook, they liked Morrison. But the 149 other seats didn't favour the LNP, not because of their federal member, it was because of Scott Morrison.
They had, dual problems, I think, really. One was a personality problem. The Prime Minister wasn't saleable in a lot of those seats, and particularly, Wentworth, North Sydney, the ones that were vulnerable and those they didn't believe were vulnerable and became that. So you think of McKellar on the North Shore, and Warringah, he didn't go near, and he had a particular candidate there. So that was an issue, that they weren't able to have a leader campaigning those seats as frequently as they would have liked. So they did go to Parramatta. But the other issue, I think, was there was a bit of a hangover there. I felt it on the campaign trail, that there was still some animosity over the way that the people in west of Sydney believe that they'd been treated disproportionately during the pandemic to those on the east.
We have seen a better result for the coalition.
A different result? Yeah, I think we probably could have. Again, this is Monday morning quarterback, but yes, we could have seen a different result if there was a different leader. You know, you're talking about Josh Frydenberg. Was there a real move on? I think that's more been escalated to a greater level than it really was. There's always chat, kind of sort of voce on the back bench about, unease with the leader. It normally comes from people who don't believe they've been propelled to the position of prominence that they believe they deserve themselves.
It's hard to tell in terms of how his party was defeated and how the coalition was defeated. Definitely, it seemed to be because of him.
It was also pretty close in the seat of Dickson. There were letters from John Howard being mailed. Anthony Albanese visited in the dying moments of the campaign, and the projection was Ali France would win her seat. She lost after preferences 51 to 48%.
We're obviously the underdogs here in Dickson, but we've done everything we can to win this seat, and I'm feeling hopeful.
Dickson's always a very tight race.
The so-called teal independents sent a wave across the country, from WA in Curtin to Wentworth on Sydney's northern beaches. Are they really independents though, and how can you define an independent? The Teals were backed by Climate 200, challenging the same inner-city areas across the country, and are predominantly female professionals turned politicians. So are they a party or a group of independents that share the exact same beliefs? What we do know is that they swallowed the Liberal Party.
Well, the Teals are eating the Liberal Party alive. That's what's happening here.
It seemed to me more just like a slow motion train wreck, right? Like I think that we could see it happening. We didn't know necessarily if it would play out in the way that it did.
As the night went on, we started to see a clearer picture of a winner.
Coalition will not win the election. It's 9 years of the coalition is over, as we understand it to be.
Scott Morrison's time was up after 4 years, knocked out by an opposition 9 years in the making.
Tonight, the Australian people have voted for change. I am humbled by this victory, and I'm honoured to be given the opportunity to serve as the 31st Prime Minister of Australia.
This election really was like no other. The primary vote of the major parties was at its lowest. The crossbench rose and the Liberals drowned. But now with 4 MPs on the lower house and 6 in the Senate, the Greens could be considered a major party.
What is a major, what is a minor? They're a major party.
The campaigning was tough, and both leaders knew it wouldn't be easy to win. Why? The amount of undecided voters. Again, something we have never seen like it. Anthony Albanese's isolation period could have been a game changer. The focal point was on the Prime Minister, which may have been the deciding factor this campaign. While Anthony Albanese was isolating, guess who he spoke to? Leo and I pressed the now Prime Minister on being vanilla, unknown and Liberal light. You said at the start of the campaign that you're not Scott Morrison and don't run away from press conferences. Yet days later, you walked out of a press conference, rather. Did you break your promise?
Not at all.
You said there that some media run a biased line. Which media specifically are you talking about?
Sky News, for example, after a particular period of time, I tend to run in the coalition's favour.
But now, as the government has settled in, the Prime Minister has been around the globe and Parliament resumes, Mark Riley tells us if he would do anything differently when covering the next federal election.
Look, I covered it differently to everybody else, actually, in broadcasting, in the press coverage. I went on the bus and I got stuck in and I went to all the electorates with the leaders, and I shared my time 50-50. I will do that again. I've done that for the last 4 elections, and I'll do it again next time, because I just think it's essential for people like me to do that. One of the most often heard, and I believe most valid criticisms of people like me and the people in this press gallery, is that we don't get out of Canberra enough. I find the moments on the campaign, the opportunity to question the leaders at press conferences on issues that concern our viewers, is high quality, and I have an obligation to do that. Our viewers can't do it. I've got to do that for them. That might sound a bit highfalutin, but that's how I see my role. I'm the eyes and ears of our viewers, and that's a very privileged position. And it's much more difficult for me to justify being that, sitting in this little office in Canberra, when I can be out on the road with leaders, seeing what they're seeing. The other thing I find, Roman, that's really of high value is those moments outside the set pieces, outside the choreographed, stage managed events of the day, where I'm able to broadcast my piece, do live crosses across the country, and then maybe have an hour and a half at a local cafe or pub or whatever community meeting where the leaders are, and just talk to Australians in Tassie or WA or far north Queensland, Western New South Wales, rural Victoria, places where I don't get to normally in my job. And that's of the highest value, to bring back the sort of intelligence you get from those conversations about what really does drive people's vote.
And that concludes this SpinCheck special. Thanks very much for watching. A reminder, we have 24/7 headlines on our website, SIXNewsAU.com, and on Sunday night at 8 p.m. But for now, I'm national political reporter Roman McKinnon. Have a good night.